So good afternoon, everyone. And welcome to this final session today on legal identity on day 3 at ID for Africa. My name is Robert Karanja, Senior Director at Co-Develop. I lead Co-Develop's investments in Africa, and I'm based out of Nairobi, Kenya. It's a pleasure to have all of you here and all protocols observed. I would like to shortly have my panel introduce themselves, and then I will provide a brief overview of this session. We don't have too much time. This session will run for 40 minutes, and then after that we'll have about 15 minutes for Q&A, so that for those of us who are attending the gala dinner, you can have enough time to transfer to the buses. So I'll start on my immediate right, and I'll ask my colleague Maruf to introduce himself and tell us what he does. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Maruf Isakature. I am Senior DIMA Coordinator for UNHCR based in Nairobi, which means that I cover issues related to data, identity management, and analysis for the 11 countries of the Eastern Horn and Great Lakes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maruf. Yusuf, kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Robert. My name is Yusuf Bashir. I am the Executive Director of Haki na Sharia Initiative, a human rights organization based out of Kenya. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Yusuf. And then last but not least, I'll ask my friend Tesfa to introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tesfa Batlisa. I'm working for refugee and returning service Ethiopia here. I'm working as a system administrator. Here also I would like to just inform you my DDJ is present here. Just he will present himself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tesfa. And we are very honored also to have Atobru Tesfa, who's the DDG of RRS Ethiopia. And thank you very much, sir, for coming. If you could kindly just tell us a few words about yourself and also tell us a bit about RRS Ethiopia. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Excellency Mr. Moderator. It's my pleasure to be here with you. My name is Bruce Asfa. I am Deputy Director General for Refugee and Returnee Service for Protection and Returnees. So RRS is a government agency who are responsible for refugee matters as well as returnee matters. And today's session is crucial for the people of concern, because in order to serve the people of concern to the best, one of the key thing is availing of or issuance of documents, identity documents. So in this regard, the ID management systems induced plays a crucial role in this regard, and we are pleased to have the first African country to integrate the refugee database system to the national digital ID system. It gives us the opportunity to serve the people of concern, which is the refugee and the returnee, to sync to the national system, because refugees like nationals, they seek different services from governmental and non-governmental organizations, and in all over the organizations they go, the first thing they be requested from the organization is to present identification cards. So, and on those identification cards, validating the IDs is also crucial. So in this regard, we already integrated our system to the national system. Because of that, it will ease the validation process. Previously, the validation process, it takes longer time, and because of that, it induces some bureaucracies for the people of concern to have a service. But because of the integration, the data fusion, now we are able to serve the people of concern to the best. And this is all about the refugees regarding the documentation and issuance. In general, RRS nowadays, as Ethiopian government, we host more than 1.1 million refugees from different, they came from different 34 countries here. Most of them are from neighboring countries. And also we are returns more than 700,000 returnees, Ethiopian returnees from different parts of the world. Most of them are from Gulf countries, and from Europe also the same, and as well as from neighboring countries as well. So we are responsible for all of the refugees. We host 1.1 million, as well as for those returnees we bring to home safely with all the partners. So I'm pleased to be here, and I want to welcome you all to hear the beautiful city Addis Ababa. Hopefully you enjoyed already the city, and I want to say to have a fruitful discussion, as well as to for sure you'll catch some experience from all the from the participants of the panels, and I want to say once again to have a fruitful discussion, and to have to catch a good experience. Thank you, and it's.
Thank you very much, Ato Brutesfa. And I think we should clap again for Ethiopia, because Ethiopia is the first African country that has integrated refugee data with the national ID. Right? So let's clap again for that. And I'll just say, take the message back to your home countries. Okay? We can learn from Ethiopia. So I'll just give a brief overview of this session and why we're discussing interoperability of legal identity data and some of the negative consequences that can emerge when interoperability is not done within the right framework. This session will explore the benefits of enabling data exchange between humanitarian systems and national ID systems, while also examining the challenges such as double registration, which has caused significant issues for individuals in several countries, particularly in the region. And I'm sure some of our panelists will refer to that. So our goal is to foster an open dialogue among all stakeholders, so that through collaborative discussions, we can develop solutions that are actionable and maximize the benefits of interoperability while mitigating its major risks. So first, I thought we should try and understand the issue. What are we talking about? And I would like to ask my friend Maruf, what does interoperability of legal identity data mean in the context of humanitarian and national ID systems? Maruf.
Thank you very much, Robert. So in short, interoperability means having different identity systems, whether they are from governments, whether they are from NGOs, whether they are from UN agency, being able to talk to each other. Talk to each other with an objective, which is to be able to provide better response, better support, better access to services to the population that is covered. In the examples of refugees, for us, the objective is to make sure that through interoperability, the access of refugees in Ethiopia are improved, are facilitated, and let's say this would be done seamlessly without the need to duplicate processes that are extremely costly. I'm going to give you an example. When you are registering a refugee, in order to get all of his or her information, including the biometric, it takes more or less, on average, in the Eastern Horn and Great Lakes, it costs $8 per person to register an individual. This is something that we don't want to duplicate. We want this information to be collected once and reused multiple times by all the different actors that are trying to provide a support to refugees. And as such, like the example of Ethiopia is really powerful. RRS does the registration of refugees within a system that is supported by UNHCR that is called PRIMES, where all the information, the biodata, the names, the sex, the origins of refugees are stored, including photos and their biometrics. And this system is made interoperable with the FIDA system, allowing the issuance of FIDA IDs to refugees. This is extremely powerful, but it also has risk and requires that the necessary frameworks are put in place.
Thank you very much, Maruf. And just as we're proceeding, I thought you can use the QR code to my right. Just scan it and ask any questions as we move along. And then we'll leave the last 10 to 15 minutes of this session for Q&A. So just ask questions as we move along. So, Maruf, thank you for giving us a nice overview, a brief overview of the issue, which is important. But when we want to speak about exploring the benefits, and RRS, Ethiopia has done this, Tesfa, what would you say are some of the potential benefits of enabling data exchange between humanitarian systems and national ID systems such as FIDA? What are some of the benefits for both the country and all the users? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robert. Just to elaborate, Ethiopia as a country just already signed a convention, signed to access right of displaced people. So those displaced people already registered as a refugee. Then while we are exchanging the data or to the national system to enhance or to deliver good services for those people of concerns. Now, why those refugees needs different services from government of Ethiopia. That's why just to simplify service delivery, just it needs their data needs to integrated with the national system. To take as an example, before we integrating our system with a national system for every service the refugee needs, we are providing a letter, even if they want to admit their child for a school and for a healthy service, financial service like banking. For each and every we are providing a letter. Currently, after we integrating our system or exchanging the data with the national system, those government stakeholders or the government sector simply just by scanning their digital ID, then they verify as they are a refugee, then they provide the service for them. That's why.
Thank you very much, Ato Tesfa. So we've now defined the issue. We've also explored some of the benefits. And in terms of, from a policy and collaboration perspective, Yusuf, how would you describe the frameworks or the safeguards that are needed to ensure that interoperability is done responsibly?
Thank you, Robert. I think it's a good question, but it also assumes that interoperability is a fait accompli. And that's, I think, the first thing I'd like to touch on. Is it absolutely necessary to make these systems interoperable? And that necessarily means asking the question, are there less, for example, invasive ways of delivering services to people, of ensuring the rights of the individuals who are the beneficiaries are protected? So that's the first thing, and this links very nicely to issues of the system design. Can the system be designed in such a way that the risks of violations of rights are put in at the very inception stage? And that's extremely important. The most important tool that has been come up with up to now is the use of human rights impact assessments as a comprehensive way of analyzing whether prior to rollout and even during the rollout of such infrastructure, there is a weighing in terms of saying that, okay, what are the risks and what are the various mitigation measures that need to be taken into account. And just to say that human rights impact assessments should not be viewed by those who are keen to roll out these projects as a hindrance, but rather as an effective tool that will assist in facilitating conversations, especially with those who are at the margins of such projects.
Thanks, Yusuf. And you bring up an important question on is interoperability a must? Is it something that we need to do? And if it has to be done, Maruf, from a practitioner perspective, how would you describe the framework that is essential, or the right framework that is essential to undertake interoperability?
No, this is a very important issue. Yes, should interoperability be done? Of course, it requires some in-depth analysis, cost-benefit analysis, not for us, but for the populations that we are trying to serve. And in this case, in this cost-benefit analysis, in this humanitarian impact assessment, it's important to look at multiple aspects. We should look at data protection and privacy aspect. In particular, in the cases of refugees have particularities linked to their refugee claim, the reason why they are refugees. And those claims are often very sensitive, and therefore having a data protection eye into the data that is being shared is particularly important. Respecting data protection principle, data minimization, there are elements that are extremely critical, and therefore data protection and privacy is something that should be at the core of this process. But we should indeed continue to look into potential harmful consequences of deploying such systems. And those are things that needs to be thought of at the beginning of the process. I would even dare to say that those are things that needs to be thought of at the beginning of even a refugee influx, if we are taking the case of refugees. Instead of thinking about how do you make system interoperable 1, 5, 10 years down the line, let's make sure that the systems have been thought of to be interoperable at the beginning, and also that the data protection consideration are thought of at the beginning, and it will avoid a lot of issues down the line, such as duplication or other potential issues. So if we actually manage to do that, we will be able to develop trust, and this trust will be critical in the usage of the solutions that we provide by the population that we serve.
Thanks, Maruf. And you touched on the issue of data protection, or data protection guidelines. Yusuf, I just wanted to ask you quickly, from your perspective, what are some of the practical steps that can be taken to balance data protection with the need or use of interoperable systems? Do you want me to repeat the question? That's 1,000 shillings to my M-Pesa. So the question is, on the issue of data protection, what are some of the practical steps that can be taken to balance data protection with the need or use of interoperable systems?
I think I already mentioned it. The first and the most practical step is to do an impact assessment. And that's a very important step. And how it's done is extremely important, because the involvement of communities is extremely vital. Informed consent obviously comes into play. And this necessarily means that the communities need to understand, as beneficiaries and as potential I would say even victims of violations. There needs to be a process of awareness, and this can be done by civil society organizations through, for example, paralegals. That is extremely important. Their facilitation as well is extremely important in terms of ensuring that they are organized in a manner that they can give their input on the various options that exist. And that would be my comment.
Thank you, Yusuf. Tesfa, from within RRS Ethiopia, have you had issues of double registration occurring in some of your centers? And when double registration occurs, what are the consequences for some of these affected individuals?
The consequences, this is a fraud, by the way. It should be a legal issue. But just after integrating our system to the national system, we have found around 1,000 double registration. That means, as known, most of my migrants are economic migrants, while they are moving from one country to another country. As such, those nationals also registered. While we are integrating our system to the national system, then this deduplication will be happened. Then we will filter, and we are committing to them to the legal issue.
It's interesting because someone in the audience must have read my mind. This question is interesting, and I'll come back to you, Tesfa, because it's very specific on double registration on Slido. So the individual says, I heard that Ethiopia set up a commission on double registration that has multi-stakeholder participation. Can you share more about this and why? I heard that Ethiopia set up a commission on double registration, an institution to review double registration, which has multi-stakeholder participation. Can you share more about this commission and why? Why was the commission set up to review double registration?
My DDG is here. Just allow me to share the question for him also.
DDG, you can join the panel if you want.
Thank you, Excellency Mr. Moderator, and thank you for asking me the question Director Arares. The reason we already established the joint commission is what we believe is the reasons when we see the reasons why those double registration is happened is because of the failures or the interoperability, the system failure or the data fusion failure, it has occurred previously. So we have to first check before we go to the legal, before we raise the legal issues, we have to first check why they go there, because there might be a different reason. Most of the reason we find those people of concern, they go like that is because they don't have the chance as previous times. So because of that, these things happen. So instead of considering those things as a legal matter, it should be handled on the operations. So in this matter, we already raised the issue because the National Digital ID Program is obligated to report such cases directly to the law enforcement agencies. And the law enforcement agencies see such kind of things in a different perspective. But we are, as a refugee representative in Ethiopia, we see on a different angles. So in order to have those opportunities to first check why they go to there or why those things has happened, and if it is intentional or not intentional. If it's not intentional, it should be treated as a victim, not as the blame should not be taken to them. So that is the reason, the main reason, we already introduced this thing to all the stakeholders. So we are the one, as a refugee representative, as a government wing, we are the one who have to handle it, such kind of cases, before it is handled by the law enforcement agencies. So because the perspective they see and the perspective we see is different, so we have to handle it first here. So we have to protect our people of concern. So in order to have such kind of chances, we have having such kind of platform is better. That's why we induce those platforms. So even if we already encounter, we already have more than 1,000 cases, but no one is asked by any law enforcement agencies, because we see the cases and we check, and almost all until now is not intentional ones. So we handle it internally, and in this matter, our UN partner, UNHCR, is also working with us, and we have also a tripartite SOP with UNHCR as well. So UNHCR also part of it, and we discuss this matter to serve the people of concern to the best way. We also take advice from the UN agency, which is from UNHCR. So this platform helps us to protect those people of concern, even if to be victimized, to not be victimized. I thank you.
Thank you, DDG. Thank you. You can see, if you want, you can join us, or you can go, whichever you prefer. Yeah, thank you. It's interesting because the issue of double registration has come up several times. So I just, with reference to the UN's perspective, there's a question here on what can other countries learn from the mistakes that led to double registration in Kenya. So I know, Maruf, you might have had visibility of that, and what are some of the lessons that can be learned from that?
Now, this is a very interesting question. But first, I would like to say that it's very difficult to come after the DG of RRS, because he really has covered a lot of the issues linked to double registration. One, when it comes to UNHCR advocates for clemency when a mistake has been done, because in the large majority of the cases, when there is double registration, as the DG was saying, refugees did not intend to double register. It was often because that was the only registration opportunity that they had at the time, and therefore they go towards that direction. Having a commission that is transparent is an excellent process, and as it was mentioned so far here in Ethiopia, there hasn't been any transfer towards a law enforcement agency. So this is already quite strong. Then when it comes to the case of Kenya, I would say if there are some lessons learned, it is indeed some of the processes that my co-panelist was mentioning earlier should have happened before, so that just in order to make sure that the potential impact assessments were conducted ahead of time. Maybe a little bit more sensitization of the population so that they understand when there is a registration of refugees to know exactly which populations we are talking about, because of course definition of who is a refugee is something that could be quite technical, because I might, for example, let's take the situation of a Somali Kenyan. We know that we have similar ethnicities across the border. It would be if I'm not very well informed. If you ask me if I'm Somali, I would be able to say honestly, yes, I am Somali. While actually, because of the fact that I'm also Kenyan, I cannot prevail myself from a refugee status, because I can avail myself from the protection of my country, which would be Kenya. So more sensitization towards the population would have been quite useful. But most importantly, and I was referring to this earlier, the faster we integrate some of those processes, the less issue we get. Example, if there was already an interoperability between the systems that was doing the management of refugees in Kenya and the systems that were managing the National Registration Bureau that is managing the identification of Kenyan citizens, if there was an interoperability from the beginning, then there wouldn't be any duplication because they would be identified from the beginning. Therefore, we wouldn't have this large number of cases that needed to be managed post facto. So interoperability from the beginning, inclusion from the start, is something that we would recommend in order to avoid those issues down the line.
Yes. Thanks, Maruf. Yusuf, you have something to add to that?
Yes, I agree with Maruf. I think he's highlighted very well. I think referring to these issues as fraud or bringing in the issues of law enforcement was the main mistake that was made in Kenya. And as a result, consequently, it has taken almost 20, 30 years to resolve that issue. Because once these issues take a security lens, to resolve them becomes extremely difficult. And it is actually an accurate lens within which to look at it, and I think Didi really understands this issue very well. The underlying factors behind double registration are poverty, lack of access to opportunity, lack of access to economic, social, and cultural rights are making people go and register themselves, and that's the cause of double registration. That is the most vital thing and I'm glad the Ethiopians have really taken that on board. That's what I wanted to add.
That's a good point. Thank you, Yusuf. Ato Tesfa, there's a question here on Ethiopia, specific to Ethiopia. I think I know the answer, but I'll ask you. Do you capture refugee status in digital ID? Do you capture the refugee status in digital ID?
Thank you again, Mr. Moderator. In this regard, I want to clear out what we do is we already make a system integration between the refugee registration system and the national ID system. So when, at the validation time, on a registration time, we share our data to the national system, and the national system returns the FIDA number, which is a uniquely identified number. So we print those numbers on the document we issue. So here it comes. When they go to an institute, or whether it could governmental or non-governmental institute, to seek a service, when at their validation time, it is pop-up. When it is pop-up, it doesn't talk about their status. So the status, the refugee status, is only printed on the documents we provide for the refugees. So the status mainly, it is not seen for other service providers. So it stays with them. Only it appears on the documents we already provide for them. So we provide basically two documents, actually without the CR document. One is the proof of registration. The other one is ID card. So on those, it is for them. And the other one is on there. We also provide certificates, civil registration certificate, like birthdays, marriage, and divorce certificates. On those certificates, the FIDA number only is appeared, but the status is not appeared. So I think I covered it.
Thank you very much, DJ. Yeah, there's an interesting question here. I'll just read it out because it's a very valid question, and I think, Maruf, you referred to it. What about citizens who register as refugees? And that happens a lot, especially in the border areas. You know, in some of the border areas where you have citizens who register as refugees. Yeah. How do you handle that?
No, indeed, this is an issue that happens quite often in borderlands, where also due to colonial borders, often like similar tribes have been separated just by borders that made very little sense when it comes to the social makeup of those areas. And indeed, there are issues of definitions that are often misunderstood by some of those communities, and therefore capacity sensitization, capacity building, so that people understand very clearly what is it that we are doing when we are registering refugees is particularly important, because most of the time it doesn't come from a bad intention. The second issue is also the fact that traditionally, if you look at, for example, the density of population of refugees across Africa, it's going to be in areas that are extremely poor. It's going to be in borderlands where there are very, very limited, as Yusuf was mentioning, very limited opportunities. And sometimes, like, we have to look at things from a humanitarian lens, from a humanitarian perspective. What are we trying to do? We are trying to help some population. We are trying to help people that are in very difficult context. So I would blaspheme here and say that if someone is dying because of lack of food, lack of basic assistance, and that person is a national, from my perspective, and I'm talking for myself here, I do not believe that it is such a drama, such a crime, if this person has access to assistance. Then, of course, like, we hope that the situation gets better, better assistance is provided, better services are provided, the right status are given, and that the person can still avail himself or herself from the nationality of their country of origin. But let's not forget what we are doing. We are doing humanitarian work.
Excellent response, Maruf, and it's not blasphemy. You're doing humanitarian work. Yusuf, you wanted to comment on that?
I think, just to add on what Maruf has talked about, I think the double registration issue, which is being referred to, the infallibility or sort of the perceived infallibility of technology played a major role in terms of making sure that people who are who can prove through other means that they are citizens of a certain country are being told by the technology that they are not citizens. And this is one of the things that it's sort of unique to raise in such a forum, but it's extremely important. And I think this is where legal protections must be followed, constitutional protections must be followed, rather than just saying that if the database has identified you or if the technology has identified you as such, if you have alternative means of proving that you are something else, then the law should be extremely clear. That's what I wanted to comment.
DG, I say it's a good thing you came because the Ethiopia questions are many. And you're the expert, so I wanted to, there's a question here that I saw on trust. Interoperability, and the person who asked the question says, if I don't trust your systems or data, then is there any value in being able to use your data? Who would want to start with that question? Tesfa?
Okay.
Yeah, trust and interoperability.
Thank you. Just trust is mandatory while we are just integrating the system since data is sensitive. As our case is to manage this, just already we are signed tripartite member of understanding, UNHCR RESPLA with national ID, and we have developed a SOP based on that. Everything will operate.
Anyone else want to add to that on trust? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Regarding trust, the question is raised, yes, it is crucial, but what we are trying to do is, in interoperability, if it's not there previously, for sure, the possibility of inducing some fraudulent cases or some mismatches is there. But the interoperability, because of that, it gives us a chance to correct it to the right way. So instead of the trusting is, we see it as an opportunity to give us to correct the data to the right way. Because, as you know, we already face, maybe when it is captured on some of the organization and when it's captured on the other organization, it might be looks different. But that difference might be induced because of the enrollment, the registration officer or the enrollment officer is the one who might be induced that. And most of the time, you know, those refugee data especially are captured in remote areas, and it's captured in a hurry because in order to support them, they are displaced because of some issues. It has happened on their home country. So because of their, they are flooded or they are influx coming in an emergency cases. So because of all those things, some errors might be induced by the enrollment officer, but when we integrate or infuse the data, it gives us a chance to correct it to the right way. So I think we have to see it from this perspective instead of from the stress perspective. Some fraudulent, it might be there, but it gives us a chance to correct it to the right way. I think it should be like that. So we are taking the interoperability or the data fusion or the system integration thing is from the perspective of having a chance to correct the data to the right way, and it will help us for the future to serve the people of concern in a best way. I think it gives us a chance like that, and it should be considered like that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. An interesting question here. and this again is in reference to Ethiopia. When the refugees are being provided a legal identity, what services or benefits do they get entitled to in addition to the refugee-related services and benefits?
Once again, thank you. Actually, the refugees are, by proclamation, they're already entitled for a lot of rights and services. But when we are talking about national data ID, the national data ID objective is to ease the service provision in every stakeholders in every service provision in institutes. One of the things we already face is, which leads to bad governance, is because of the identity or because of the way we try to validate the identification, they induce a lot of bureaucracy. In order to protect fraudulent cases, refugees are facing a lot of problems. Not refugees, but also nationals face a lot of problems. But in our cases, refugees are the most vulnerable ones, and from this perspective, they are more vulnerable. So in order to ease those validation process, the data fusion or integrating to the national digital system and ease the validation process creates to provide a service not for us but for all service provider, whether you call it a governmental or non-governmental service provider. So when we are integrated to the digital ID system, we already print out on the document we already issue for the refugees, and when they present their identity can be validated instantly using an offline system or using an app or using on an online system. So this already there because of it is integrated to the national system. So the identity will be validated smoothly. If their identity is validated smoothly, the service provision will be easier. So this is what we are trying to induce by integrating the refugee data to the national database system. Thank you.
Thank you, DG. That arise from misunderstandings that happen, for example, border security concerns. I think the question is talking about either clashes, misunderstanding between refugee communities and the local community, and how do you address that backlash? I think you and I earlier were speaking about Dadaab, Kakuma for a long time, and some of the challenges that happened in those areas, and what role would the UN play in terms of addressing some of those backlashes that happen?
The registration and so on, and we have been mentioning the fact that it is so important to have systems that are built for nations instead of systems that are built for citizens and refugees separately. So sometimes we also have a tendency as humanitarian actors to be very narrow-minded and very focused on our mandate. For example, UNHCR would be very much focused on refugee populations. But and as I was mentioning earlier as well, borderlands are often very destitute areas. So how can we go and implement projects targeting specifically populations because they have crossed the border, while not targeting as well, not supporting as well populations that are hosting those the refugee caseload? It is unrealistic. It is also like almost disrespectful, because the plight of those host community also does matter. And often what happens is that the tension arises because the host communities have not been considered enough when it comes to the response from the different humanitarian communities. The best way to address some of those issues is to have an area-based approach instead of having a mandate-based approach. So it doesn't matter in some specific context if you are a refugee or if you are a citizen from a particular country. What matters is that the development or the humanitarian projects that are developed by the state or by the humanitarian community are inclusive and inclusive of everybody.
Yeah, I agree with Maruf in terms of how he framed that. I'd like to comment on this. I think it's an artificial division between refugees and host communities in border areas, because I think borders in Africa are, drawn with straight lines and pencils somewhere else. So borders, communities do not find it very difficult to recognize these borders that are relatively recent. So the comment I'd like to make is that these systems, when they're being rolled out, the communities in these border areas are all with regard to power dynamics, they are in a very negative situation. These systems are being imposed on them, and I think the redress of this position is the most important bit. There is no inherent violence that exists among communities in borders. I'd like to state that. Yeah.
Thanks, Yusuf. You're giving me ideas on making a determination on which side of the border Mount Kilimanjaro sits, but that's another. Yeah. So closing statements, we have 3 minutes. I'll start with Tesfa, Yusuf, Maruf, and then Honorable DG. Just a quick statement, and then we'll close. We only have 3 minutes. Tesfa, go. Any closing?
You know, it's the first country integrating the refugee with the national systems is a good experience in the practice. Just I hope all of you just adopt in your country. We benefited many things by just integrating the system smoothly. It smoothes the service we deliver for the refugee. This is my last closing remark. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yusuf?
I think I'd like to go back to the point of the necessity of empowering communities, especially the communities that are subjects of these systems. The potential benefits of legal support at all stages is extremely important. The use of paralegals, for example, my organization, Haki na Sharia, has pioneered, together with other partners that are here, the community paralegals who assist communities in largely difficult locations in order to access documentation, in order to make sure that they are not excluded in the access to government services. I think that is the one thing that I would like to really emphasize, and that's the one thing that would make a difference. When these systems are rolled out, one of the things that has helped is litigation. I think litigation sounds like a very scary word to some people, But I think it provides an opportunity in a democratic setup for these questions to be canvassed in a court of law, where the lines are to be drawn in terms of how these systems are linked. And it has made a huge difference where civil society has used litigation. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Maruf, and then we'll close with Honorable DG.
No, thank you. No, in closing, I will repeat myself once more. Let's develop interoperability from the start. Let's look for solutions from the start, because it will avoid problems later on. So inclusion from the start, interoperability from the start, this is actually critical. Let's develop systems for a nation that is composed not only of citizens, but a nation that is composed of everybody that is on the territory. Let's not let anybody behind. And this is a commitment that has been done under the SDG 16.9. And let's continue. And finally, yes, together let's try to improve people's lives.
Thank you. DG.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm not a panelist, actually. I'm here in the higher table with a shortcut, but it is my pleasure to have here and to share the Ethiopians' experience. We are very grateful for all of your concerns, because we are learning from all your concerns, from all you raised the questions. So I thank you for that. And I want to invite you, as a government of Ethiopia, and Dr. is also here. 3 years earlier, we already around here to select the places. And I'm glad to have you here also to join us. And on the name of him, I want to invite you to the dinner. For sure you enjoy it, you experience more, and you will see more beautiful things about Addis, about Ethiopia, and about Africa. Ethiopians Hand for Humanity. I thank you.
Thank you. And another round of applause to my wonderful panel. Thank you.